one final question for the evening. It's an honor to be the last question asker.
Twice this evening, I've heard reference to statistics and articles that we're a business-friendly state. And quite frankly, regardless of what Forbes magazine says, we've had a net loss in business, which has impacted my household, because I've been unemployed for 5 months now. I'd like to know specifically 3 things that you're going to do to change that. Thanks.
Could you share your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Scott Stripe.
Thank you, Scott. And we'll begin with Ellen. 3 specific things to increase jobs.
Okay, well, the first thing I would do is repeal the dirty dozen that passed last year. And by that, those were the tax credits and exemptions that went all over the business sector, again, from big business to small business. I heard directly from the people how they would be impacted. And again, the committee, the Democratic majority, went ahead and passed those, regardless of the impact to the individual or to the message it would send out. So I would, first of all, vote for those. Second of all, I would look at repealing faster. I think there is some real impact on the ground there, and it's a message that is sent out in, you might say, well, it's just a vehicle registration fee. Well, again, that's another message that we have. And the last thing I would do is I would reinstate the 6% limitation on spending. This was Senate Bill 228 last year. It was, we will not have money to exceed the amount that would, the formula that was put in that bill. But what the message it was that it sent out there was that the legislature can't control its spending. I would turn that around as well.
Thank you. And Bruce.
Thank you, and I don't disagree. Business has been impacted. That doesn't mean that Colorado still isn't a friendly state to business. And we had a downturn in the economy, and it impacted construction, which this part of the state relies on very heavily. So until we can create some jobs and get people back to work, we probably won't see an upswing in that industry. I believe that some of the things we should do in regards to the creating jobs, again, I was the Senate sponsor on House Bill 1001, which was renewable energy, which can create many jobs in installation as well as manufacturing. I think we need to capitalize that, and on that in Southwest Colorado, we are ripe for that. We can do some things to lure industry in. I also believe that there will be an increase in oil and gas production. We need to allow that to occur and then do that pursuant to the oil and gas rules. And we need to spread the word about, as I've been doing in town hall meetings, about the programs that are currently out there that will assist small businesses and help them stay in business, become more efficient in these difficult economic times.
Thank you. Ellen, would you like to respond?
I would just like to add that it's time for the state of Colorado to treat its taxpayers like its customers. No small business could stay in business if it treated its customers the way the state of Colorado has. Again, over and over, I have listened to constituents of mine this summer begging me to intercede in between them and a state agency that's about to put a lien on their property, who is sending them erroneous tax notices with penalties. All of that is unacceptable at the time, and the message comes from the top. I think the governor's administration needs to send the message on through to the agencies. How do we get out of the way? Let's review the regulations out there. Not go free for all and remove every regulation, but certainly it's, I say it's like barnacles on a ship. It just keeps building up over time, over time, over time. This economic crisis could be an opportunity for us to step back and look and see, what have we done to business in the state? What should we remove? What can we really let the private sector go forward and do?
Thank you. Bruce.
Thank you. I would like to comment on what Ellen referred to as the dirty dozen, which were really bills that were out there in an attempt to balance the budget. I voted against the majority of those bills also, and one in particular I'd like to talk about was the industrial fuels exemption that was out there for manufacturing. I introduced an amendment in the Senate which made it that those exemptions would not go away for agricultural purposes, including electricity for irrigation. And there was other bills this year that impacted the ag industry as well. They were limited to 2 years. A lot of these others were in perpetuity. So we need to do what we can to protect small business is agriculture as well. And I believe I did that, and we need to make sure we protect those interests in the future. Those folks operate on a very small profit margin, And to come in and remove that exemption for electricity, in particular for irrigation purpose, would have been devastating and affected this economy here locally even more than what they already have been impacted.
Thank you. And with that, we'll proceed to our closing statements. We'll begin with Ellen.
Well, I wish there were more time tonight to be lighthearted and tell jokes, and that's usually what I like to do as opposed to be so serious. But we are in very serious times. And the state of Colorado, this isn't going to be over anytime soon. When the recession hits the state of Colorado, typically it hits the Front Range earlier than the western slope, but we also recover it later. We just got the economic forecast yesterday for the next quarter, and it does not look good. And I hate to be the harbinger of news that you probably already know, but what it means is, again, state government needs to look at what it's doing to its small business, its large business. How do we have the private sector jobs grow? I can't show you, I'm not allowed to have paperwork up here, but I'd like you to know that there's a graph out there that is statistical that shows public sector jobs, government jobs, since 2008 has stayed not only steady but grown a little bit. Well, that's not happened in the private sector in Colorado. It has, as you all know, dipped. And I too know what it's like to have someone who's unemployed in my household. So I know it firsthand on a day-to-day basis. What I would say is, again, this can be an opportunity. It's a difficult time, but it's time for government to look both at the state and federal level, what has grown on itself, what doesn't make sense anymore. I think the call for common sense is very timely. There's a way to put it into place. It means we have to make some tough decisions. We have to reduce the size of state government. We have to reduce our spending. We have to figure out what is the core infrastructure that we all can agree we want to support. And then we have to respect the wishes of the people, because we're going to have ballot initiatives like 60, 61, and 101 when people feel that state government has run amok. We need to restore trust and faith in the state legislature, and I think that begins by making some of these hard choices. We need a rainy day fund. We need to make those cuts. We need to be customer friendly. And those are all the things that I would work on. I believe my record shows that. If you would look me up at electellenroberts.com, you'll find out more about me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Bruce, your closing statements, please.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for coming out tonight and sharing your evening till 9 o'clock at night and listening to us talk about politics. And I believe that I'm the best candidate for this job. I was appointed to the legislature and have an outstanding freshman year. Again, I was named the Pinnacle Award recipient from the Colorado Farm Bureau. There are 4 awards that are given to the General Assembly, 2 in the House and 2 in the Senate, 1 for each party. And I received that, and the explanation over in Alamosa when they discussed that award was, this guy gets it. He understands our needs. He understands water, he understands agriculture in this state. So I would encourage you to look at that, and I too would stand by my voting record. I had 16 pieces of legislation that were introduced this year. All of them passed. If you take the resolutions and memorials out of that, I had 12 bills, high profile. And my opponent has said over and over that in her career as a representative, she's passed 33 bills. I passed 12 in my first year. Again, I carried almost every high-profile water bill in the state. I had high-profile energy bills and also efficiency in government bills. I introduced a simple bill for the Secretary of State that saved over $200,000 just by notifying people by email. Those are the kind of things we need to look at in state government and become more efficient in what we do. As far as cutting programs, we will need to cut costs. There's no question we have to balance the budget. That's a constitutional requirement. When revenues are down, our spending needs to go down. So I do think, though, it said just across the board cuts, we need to look at prioritizing what is important. And to me, again, I have young children. Many of you may have young children or grandchildren. They're our future. We need to continue to fund their education. So with that, thank you again for coming out tonight. I greatly enjoyed being in front of my constituents and hope to serve you well again next year in the Colorado State Senate.
Not to the closing statements. Closing statements close the evening. I'd like to also thank you for coming out, and again thank the League of Women Voters who put this evening together. And Karen?
And I would like to thank you again for coming and spending your evening for 2 hours and learning more about the candidates for whom you're going to vote. Thank you for coming.